Hello everyone, hello IFMSA, and welcome to our first webinar on the High-Level Political Forum and Shadow Reporting. I'm here today with some members of our United Nations Task Force of IFMSA, and my name is Marie, and I'm the Vice President for External Affairs of IFMSA.
Hello everyone, my name is Indira and I'm from CIMSA ISMKI Indonesia, and I'm currently the liaison officer to UN agencies in my NMO, and also I'm the general member of IFMSA United Nations Task Force.
Hello everyone, my name is Alice Claesson. I'm a member of IFMSA Sweden, and I am also one of the coordinators for the IFMSA United Nations Task Force.
So welcome again, and as you can see, we have very competent members with us today. The UN Task Force is really the body in IFMSA that coordinates and supports all of the actions that we do related to the United Nations. So they're following the different processes that are ongoing in the UN, and they also give us insights and help me and the team of officials to understand a bit better what's going on, because there are a lot of things going on. So they're also overviewing what meetings are coming up, what opportunities for IFMSA together with me. And today we're gonna go more in detail with some of the external opportunities. But really, the United Nations Task Force also have responsibilities related to capacity building. And as you might know, they also have held several PGAs in the past and so on. So without further ado, I'll pass on the word to Indira to talk a bit more about sustainable development within the UN. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alice. Okay, so first we can see that the overall logo of the Sustainable Development Goals. So you can see there are 17 of them, which has 196 targets. Next, we go on to the concept of the sustainable development. So actually there are many definitions how we define sustainable development, but this one is actually the one that people use the most, which is it is defined as development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own need. So basically, sustainable development calls for a concerted effort towards building an inclusive, sustainable, and resilient future for people and planet. And also, sustainable development to be achieved, it is very crucial to harmonize three core elements, which we call it as the economic growth, social inclusions, and environmental protection. So all of these three pillars needs to be integrated together without we actually focus on one certain things, because it is actually affecting towards each other. And then within this sustainable development, there's actually two concepts. First one is the concept of needs, in particular the essential needs of world's poor, to which overriding priority should be given, and the idea of limitations imposed by state of technology and social organizations on the environment ability to meet present and future needs. Okay, next. We have three pillars of sustainability. So as I mentioned before about the three pillars, which are the environment, social, and economic, with that being said that we cannot just simply focus on one aspect. For example, like we only focus about the environment. No, we cannot do like that, because as we can remember back in 2008, what happened in the United States when the economic regression was happened, basically all of our aspects of living is actually being affected. When you're actually lacking of economic power, you can actually, it can actually affect environment. For example, many organizations that focus on climate change and also tackling issues regarding the environment could not get funding for that. And also, there's actually other aspects that are affecting from this crisis. So it is very important that everyone is concerned about three different pillars, so that by integrating all of them, we can actually achieve sustainability. Next. So now we can continue into the introduction to 20th agenda. and the Sustainable Development Goals. So basically, the Sustainable Development Goals itself was adopted back in September 2015 by all UN members of states, and basically everyone is very excited because it shows that this is the reformed version from the MDGs, which was finished in 2015, and it takes quite years to actually adding more points and then try to come up with new goals that every member of states need to achieve. And about SDGs itself, it is not actually legally binding to many member of states, but everyone needs to take this into account, especially for the member of states. For example, by incorporating SDGs into their national framework, so that all the points and also the indicators are well measured and also can be monitored for further process. So SDGs also either to end all forms of poverty, fight inequalities, and tackle climate change while ensuring that no one is left behind. So this is a very interesting point between SDGs from the MDGs. So in SDGs, it targets all countries to call for action, while in MDGs, it is more focused on developing countries. So in SDGs, low, high, and middle class income countries are obliged to do to achieve the SDGs. So this is a very interesting goals that member of states need to be concerned of. But still, this is not legally binding, but it is one of the things that everyone should take into liberty. Next. Now the implementation of SDGs in the country. So although that some of the countries are still thinking that SDGs is something far from their capacity to achieve, but somehow SDGs is representing what are the most common problems that countries mostly facing on their country. So by taking some of the relevant points from the SDGs into their national framework and then try to come up with their own indicators, it is somehow very easy or feasible for the countries try to achieve those goals. And implementation and success is actually rely on countries on sustainable development policies, plans, and programs, and will led by the countries. So I'm going to give an example how my country works in terms of implementing SDGs. So basically, the Indonesian government is trying to take some of the points that is the most relevant, and then they incorporate into the national framework until from 2016 until 2020. And then also they call for stakeholders, non-government organizations, youth organizations, and also the United Nations, so that they can collaborate together, because the government realized that they cannot work by their own. So they have to call for other stakeholders to work together to achieve that. So, and also what is very interesting, they also invite youth organizations so that they can get more ideas, get more recommendations, how suppose SDGs can be achieved. And also, one of the inclusivity from the Indonesian government is they disseminate the framework to the society, so that we can know what are the indicators, what are the points that made by our government, so that SDGs seem to be more local for us, because when we talk about SDGs, sometimes it's something that is it's very much governmental type of problem, so it's not really localized. And then also multi-stakeholder partnerships that I mentioned for what the Indonesian government have done is one of the things that I think every country should do, because at the end of the day, there's actually a lot of interagencies within one country, which somehow their work is in line with the work of the government. So I think call for collaborations should be made on the very first place. Okay. Okay, so before continuing for the next slide, so IFMSA itself has been known for promoting points number 3 of SDGs, which is good health, but actually there's much more than that we're actually supporting. So we have point number 4, the good educations, and then we also have point number 5, which is the gender equality and women's empowerment, and we're also supporting point goals number 10, which is reduced inequalities, and then 16, peace, justice, and strong. And then when we actually try to come up with these points, we actually try to link towards our work, towards IFMSA standing committees, what are the most appropriate goals that we actually working on, and what are the goals that is the most probably the most connecting with what we are doing as in federations. So again, IFMSA is not only focusing on goal number 3, but we also have more broad goals that we're actually supporting. It depends with the work that we're currently working on, and also with the standing committees. And then that's how we actually intersect with the sustainable development goals. Because that's it from me from the first part of this webinar.
Thank you so much, Indira. Now we will move on to Alice, who's going to tell you all a little bit about the high-level political forum and what opportunities you as NMO have to support our process, but also to get involved and really to make the voices of medical students heard. So Alice, please take the floor.
Thank you, Marie. So the high-level political forum is the follow-up and review body of the 2030 agenda. And what that means is essentially that every year there is a meeting in the United Nations, and it brings together member states of the UN, as well as UN entities, civil society representatives, such as IFMSA, for example, the private sector, and a lot of other different people and groups that have an interest in the Sustainable Development Goals, as well as a range of other frameworks also related to sustainable development. And pretty much the point of this forum is to exist is, as Indira were saying, this is a big universal agenda meant to be implemented by all member states of the UN, but also in collaboration with the private sector, civil society, academia. A lot of different people is essentially involved in this. So that is a pretty big challenge, which means that there will need to be certain measures to see how we are doing, because all of these 17 sustainable development goals and their 169 targets are meant to be achieved by year 2030, which is actually quite soon. So the point behind the high-level political forum is to bring all these people together and discuss the different challenges, as well as the progress that is happening around the 2030 agenda and reaching these goals. So last year, IFMSA had the delegation at the high-level political forum, and in the picture, you can see Daniel from BVMD Germany speaking at the high-level political forum and addressing certain issues that IFMSA feels strongly about in this context. And this is something that we will also be doing this year. So this year, we are looking more at something called voluntary national reviews. And I would like the next slide. So voluntary national reviews are reports done by member states on their progress towards implementing the SDGs. And this is something that they do on a voluntary basis. So any country can say that they would like to report on what they are doing. And the idea is for these reports not only to be countries giving exact details about what they have done, but it's more focused towards pointing out different challenges they've had, pointing out lessons that they have learned trying to do this, emerging issues that they will need to face, and also share best practices. So it's supposed to be a way for member states of the UN to learn from each other, kind of the way that IFMSA and NMOs gets together in our general assemblies to learn from each other on the things that we are doing as well. So that is what the high-level political forum is for, and it's what the voluntary national reviews are for. And in 2017, one of the targets and one of the goals that will be looked at specifically in the high-level political forum is goal 3 on health, which is the one most directly related to the work that IFMSA does. So we're really interested to see what countries are doing this year. And there will be 44 countries who will be presenting their reviews this year as well, which is quite a lot. So the next point that we want to talk about is something called shadow reporting. And shadow reporting is reports that are conducted by civil society to provide an alternative view to the official reports done by, in this case, governments. And the whole idea behind doing shadow reports is that a lot of the time governments will want to present the best aspects of what they're doing or only focus on some aspects of what they're doing. So the idea behind shadow reports is for mostly civil society organizations to be able to give a more in-depth view on what is happening in their countries. And this has usually been done a lot in human rights advocacy in the past, but it's also becoming more relevant in other parts of the UN system, such as in the SDGs. And the idea behind this is increasing accountability, as well as focusing on certain groups or issues that might not be that understandable from an official report that tries to cover everything in ideally less than 300 pages. So what we're hoping to do for this year is to actually have IFMSA NMOs take part in some shadow reporting. Next slide would be great. And pretty much what we want to see is NMOs also creating such shadow reports. And the idea is that they would be able to do this, and the IFMSA delegation to the high-level political forum this year would be able to present these outcomes. And I think I would like to turn over to Marie to talk a bit about why we think this is a good idea for IFMSA to do.
Yeah, so it's me again. You can't see me because I'm projecting my screen. But basically, one of the thoughts that we had around this was that if NMOs took part in this, it could be an opportunity really for NMOs to get more involved, but also for IFMSA and for us as medical students to come across as a stronger stakeholder. And what we think would be cool is that we try to coordinate it, and you try to, if you think that your government is doing something really well, you can write this in the report that is something that is really well, that is related to the SDGs, potentially SDG 3, which is the most sort of logical one, but it might also be, you know, climate change and health, and then it's linked to some of the other, or refugees health, or gender equality and health, and then it's also linked to some of the other SDGs, and then we can have sort of cross-cutting issues. But it's really to have the voice of civil society and for IFMSA to be involved in this process where we can really show how strong we are, and you can also show how strong you guys are and the NMOs are, and what we can really achieve when we work hard and when we work well together. So we hope that you're on board on this, and that it's something you'd like to get involved in, because it really is something where we think we can showcase. So a way for us to hold our governments accountable, and I think that's something that we can do more in IFMSA, and something where we're sort of really placed uniquely to do this, and where we're placed as youth and as medical students. It's really important that we take these development issues and also take responsibility for them, and making sure that we raise our voices when we see things that are not being followed up on, when we see our governments making promises that are not being implemented, or maybe they're even going against their promises and all of these pledges. So it will also be an opportunity for you guys to do it at the national level, and maybe NMOs could also advocate at the national level on certain issues, and then we can bring it all kind of to the high level political forum in July. And maybe about the high level political forum, I'm not sure, Alice mentioned it, and that we will have a delegation, and for sure if some of the NMOs really do the shadow reporting really well, it would be great to showcase it, and hopefully we'd also get some opportunities for some of these NMOs, if possible, during the high-level political forum. So we're very interested in getting engaged in this, and all of the UN processes are so important and directing for many of the things that are working within or happening within the health sphere as well. So yeah, we hope you'll get on board, and then I think maybe Alice will give you a bit more background on how to write these reports.
Yes, thank you, Marie. Yeah, so pretty much we have developed a concept note for how to do this, and it's not a complete step-by-step guide, but it's meant to function a little bit as a way to get you started. And if you are interested in doing this, then we'd also be really happy if you can send us an email to let us know that you're interested, and we would be happy to discuss with you more in detail what you can do. But just to briefly say what we're expecting NMOs to do in these shadows reports would be for them to pick a few targets that they're interested in. So, for example, you might want to look at what your government is doing to prevent and treat non-communicable diseases. And then you would do some background reading around around non-communicable diseases, and try to figure out what your government is doing, how it is affecting certain groups, and try to figure out if there is anything around non-communicable diseases that you feel is missing. So, for example, you might think that certain groups who are usually more affected by NCDs are not really being targeted in the approach that your government is doing. So then you could do a shadow report looking specifically on how that group is being reached or not reached by government services on this area. Or you might think that someone is actually not at all paying attention to an important part of the target you're focusing on, and then your report could be looking at that specifically. So the idea is for this to be a way that you can either highlight great things that your government is doing that you think everyone else should pay attention to as well, or it could be a way for you to point out that there are still missing aspects that would need to be addressed. And that's kind of what we're thinking would be a very general idea about what we want this to look like. And then the idea is that all the NMOs who do this on their national level will also send in their reports, and we will put together a shadow report by IFMSA from the NMOs who have done shadow reports. And I see someone asking in the chat about the full list of the 44 nations sending their reviews, and there is now one list also posted in the chat. Great. But just in general, if you want to know more about this, you can go to sustainabledevelopment.un.org, and then you can read up on the high-level political forum and what countries are doing reports this year.
Thank you, Alice. And yeah, maybe I can also just add that please ask questions here. And we know we know that some of these processes that might not be very familiar to you. We know there's a lot of lack in general about. Even though there are great efforts, there is still a lack of promotion of the Sustainable Development Goals and a lack of knowledge in a lot of countries. So please ask questions, and no questions are stupid. And there is this chat on the right side of the webinar, where the profile at YouTube, and you can just start typing in your questions, and then we'll take them all very soon. And one of the reasons, of course, why I'm not sure we said it, but why we're really asking to collaborate with the NMOs on this is because, of course, you're the experts on what's happening in your country. What are the political systems? How do they work? How do your government communicate to you? And you know what's going on. So that's why we think it's so important to have your input here, and we can for IFMSA as well, and to collaborate. But I think maybe Indira has a bit more to say now. Indira, I'm afraid you are muted.
Yeah, sorry, I just realized that. Okay, so regarding how NMOs inform regarding the shadow reporting, I actually just look up that my country is going to report, and I think this is the simple step that you can do as an NMO to start making the shadow report. If your NMO is having a very strong partnerships with the government organizations or with the UN agencies within your country, you can actually try to discuss with them and try to ask in the HLPF or not, because this is a voluntary report, and if yes, you can try to discuss what are the points and then the progress that they're going to review, and then from that you can sort of like try to think on the other aspect. For example, like I have a very strong connection with WHO Indonesia, and I know that there's actually focusing a lot in universal health coverage and also non-communicable disease, and I know what are their progress, and so that I can try to give some comments and also try to give some perspective from medical students who actually experience what's happening within my society. So I think that's actually a very simple act. Try to find someone or like some institutions that knows the best about the progress regarding SDGs, especially in health sectors, and try to talk with them, try to find other perspective, and then you can actually start to make your own reports, because I think that's actually the easiest way. Well, in this case, if your NMO have like a very good partnerships with like external partners, and please don't take this as a like this that you guys are intimidated, that you guys are somehow like criticizing your own country, but this is just a recommendations or like the alternative reports, what can be done as a country to achieve the sustainable development goals. Okay, I think that's it from me. Okay.
Okay. So I think that was a brief overview from our side. Maybe I can also add that a shadow report might sound really complicated and big, but as Alice said, it can really just be one target that you're looking into, and you can write 2 pages. It doesn't have to be a 30 pages document or something like that. So yeah, it's really just to give you an idea about it. Now I think we'll move. Oh yeah. So what do NMOs do next? Alice, can you? Yeah.
Yes. So if NMOs are watching this and thinking that this sounds interesting, if they would maybe consider doing this, well, first you should check if you are from an NMO who are doing some reporting this year, and then you should read the concept notes that we created, and send us an email at tf.unitednations@ifmsa.org and let us know that you are interested in doing this, or even if you have questions and haven't made up your mind if you might want to do this, then please also feel free to email us. And then very briefly, what you will need to do is pick one or a few targets that you think your NMO has experience with and would be interested in doing something around. Do some background research about what these targets mean and what the expectations around it is, what your government is doing around it, and then simply sit down and try to figure out what issues you see are being addressed well, aren't being addressed well, or maybe missing somehow, and then make some comments and recommendations for the national progress. So this is also a way for you to kind of catch your country officials in a way that they might listen a bit to what you have to say about what they are doing. So this is also a good opportunity for you to influence what your government is doing around a lot of different issues. Because again, it's a very broad agenda that includes a lot of different targets. So you're almost definitely working on at least one of them.
All right, then I actually think that everything that we've got left is questions, and I'm afraid we don't have that many questions for now, but there was the question about what countries were the reporting ones. We've sent a link, and really you can see it all on sustainabledevelopment.un.org. Further than that, I don't think we have much more. We hope for you to get in touch with us, and feel free to reach out at any time, because we know this might be a lot, but we want to make it as easy as possible, and we feel like IFMSA is definitely competent, and you as NMOs are definitely competent to work on this. For sure, we're already working on sustainable development, as Alice said. We're just not putting it always into the UN context. So that's great, and I want to thank the task force members for being here today. I don't think we have much more. It was a pleasure, and I hope this gave you an overview of the opportunities that we have also for our NMOs to stand together, and for all of us as medical students worldwide really to advocate for development issues that are related to health, and try to improve the world in line with our vision, really. And I don't have anything more to say. Alice and Indira, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Okay, so from the task force team, I'll be the one who's in charge and doing follow-ups on HLPF. So I'm going to be approaching NMOs for those countries who actually will report for this year's HLPF. So feel free to actually approach us if you have any questions regarding how to develop the shadow reporting. Please do email us as tf.unitednations@ifmsa.org, or just if you have like us on your Facebook list, friends, you can easily just message us on Facebook or WhatsApp. So we're actually very open to any questions, and we're really hoping that there will be at least half of the NMOs could do the shadow reporting. So I think that's it from me.
Okay. Thank you. I actually see a question now in the chat box about where to access the concept note. It's been sent out in the email that called for this webinar. I think it is also in the Facebook post, but if not, we can add that. Apart from that, I don't have anything to add per se. So thank you to the people watching this webinar, and please do reach out to us if this is something you find interesting. And thank you very much, Marie and Indira, for being here as well. So, yeah, thank you.
Okay, great. And yes, about the email that Alice sent out, or the task force sent out, it was sent to the NMO server and to the IFMSA general server. So all of you, if some of you are not on the general server, you can sign up. And some things like this will come up, and also the call for the high-level political forum delegation will also be coming up on both the NMO server and the general server. So we hope to hear from you, and also if you watch this webinar after we've been live, please feel free to reach out, as we've said, I think, quite a lot of times now. So we look forward to hearing from you, and I think that's it. Bye. Oh, that's me. Hi, bye.